Hello there everyone, it's me Michael. Today I'm here to talk to you about my first year at college, and as the chalkboard says, we're just gonna rip it to shreds. Just rip it to shreds. I would not call my first year in college like the absolute best thing I've ever done. The first half is mostly gonna be how awful I found like being in the School of Architecture, and then the second half is gonna be like a little bit calmer and just a lot more boring. Okay, so I guess I moved to a different city. I live in an apartment with two people I've never met. Well, I mean, like I've met them now, except they're moving out in a month, and I'm gonna move in with two new strangers. So that's kind of like what I'm doing. It's been a year and I still don't know anyone, and I didn't know anyone when I was moving there. So now it's time to start talking about it in chronological order because this jumping back and forth is getting really weird and annoying in my head. So I moved to my university town, not knowing anyone, knowing that I was the only person from my high school that was going to this school, and I honestly had nothing to expect. Like, I had absolutely no expectations of what was going to happen. I thought everything was going to be really amazing, and my very first day, just like moving out, not even school starting, was horrific. My mom was working, so my dad took me along with my uncle, and they dropped me off. They helped me like build my desk, which I got from Wayfair for $80. Very nice. You will see it when I go back to school. I'll do a room tour, maybe. We'll see. But I would like to do one. And after we were done setting up, my uncle was like, I think we should go grab lunch. So we went out to go have lunch at this little Asian restaurant. I had pad thai, and I got back to my apartment, and like the AC was broken. So we had just opened a window and it was fine around like noon. But living in Texas in August, by 3 o'clock you cannot be on like an upper floor of an apartment when it has no AC. Like, it's just absolutely awful. So I'm sitting there thinking about the fact that I'm alone, and I am sobbing. I'm miserable. I'm hot. I'm trying to hang up my clothes. I'm trying to make my bed. I'm just trying to do all sorts of different things, and I'm just breaking down at all of them. And then I start calling different people, and like, some people are answering, some people aren't, and I'm just absolutely sobbing. Like, I absolutely hate this experience. I think that it's absolutely awful. I feel so detached from everyone and everything. And then the heat starts feeling a lot worse, a lot more oppressive. When you're crying, your body starts to heat up as well. And the next thing I know, then I called my dad and I said, turn around, come pick me up. And he was like, well, we're gonna wait for your mom to get off. So I had to wait until like 7 p.m. for them to like, or no, they left around 6 p.m. My mom got off work early, and then they came and picked me up. And that was my first day living by myself. And I didn't even last a whole day. The next time I got dropped off for school was actually really nice, and I really didn't hate it. Architecture had a little event where we met up with people. There were a couple people who I knew, but ultimately I didn't stay that late because the bus was only running so late, and I live quite a ways from campus. So I just wanted to make sure I got on the bus on time, and then I was able to get back to my apartment, rest up, and go to class the next day. If you're not familiar with architecture, basically the first thing they slammed into my face was how expensive it was going to be. They told us on the first day that we needed to do we needed to get this kit from the co-op, and the kit was about $700. I did not have $700. My family had to like call up everyone in my family to try and figure out how we were gonna end up with $700. So that was really stressful, but I got it. And then I started going through the grind. And the thing is, they make you buy all the supplies and they do not tell you how to use it. I literally, a response I got was, well, haven't you taken an architecture class? And like, this was a professor. And I'm like, no. I'm like, this is my first year in architecture school. Why would I know how to use everything from your $700 kit? That doesn't make sense to me. I also didn't have glasses at the time, and now looking back at my projects, I can see just how uneven my lines were. But back then, I had no clue how jagged a lot of my lines were. And that was always a big criticism, was that I wasn't like perceiving the finer details of my project. I had a lot of criticisms about my craft, and I mean, like, I think that's fine, but I think that I did really well for never having done any of it before. And I definitely did not. I don't think they took into consideration that some of us just hadn't ever done it. There were most of us who dropped had never been in architecture. And we had absolutely no clue what was going on. Like, a lot of the kids had gone to architecture classes in like high school. My high school never offered an architecture class or a shop class or anything like that. And a lot of them had internships, and I never had one of those either. So it wasn't an adjustment period so much as it was being thrown into the ocean from a cruise ship without a lifeboat and being told, swim to shore. But they're also pointing in the wrong direction, so you don't know where you're going or what the goal is. Overall, I was working a lot of hours on these projects, and they were absolutely just killing me because I had absolutely no clue what was going on. And I was kind of like passionless. I didn't have any questions, and I think it's because I was like very out of my element, in the sense that I was very unhappy and I felt like I had made the wrong choice in my life. Like, I was just extremely unhappy with everything, like how every single thing was going. So I went through architecture for like I went through architecture for the semester. My final project, I spent 150 to 160 hours on the model, and I spent around 14 to 16 hours on my drawings. I got a B- on my drawings and a C+ on my model. I'm fine with sharing my grades. I think that my model grade should have been like a B-, and my drawings definitely didn't deserve a B- because my drawings were actually really good. They had one mistake on them, like that was it. It was just a stair that looked wonky because I had to erase it and I couldn't erase the line. So yeah, I don't think it was that bad, but I guess I'm not the judge of that. Critiques, judgments, in architecture are interesting. I grew up doing public speaking, so I didn't really care. I find it really easy to speak about what I need to doing a presentation is also really easy. Architecture, in architecture, they're going to tell you that you're free to do whatever and that the only bounds are like what you can make. They will very quickly switch that perspective when it's appropriate to them. Like I modeled my design after reading. So everything, like you read my design left to right, it moved vertically down across the elevation, but the way you had to access it was by like moving around in those spaces, which was meant to be reading between the lines. And I was told that architecture is so much more than a metaphor, that I should have understood that. And I was like, you guys let me spend 150 hours doing this, and now you're telling me that like I'm wrong for my concept. I'm like, okay, sure, maybe this is a library, but I mean, like, you guys say it's not anything except for a space. I don't know. Architecture was weird and I'm bitter about it. And like, if you want to go into architecture, don't let this scare you. There are some people who do phenomenally well in architecture. I was not one of them. I was also not even an architecture student. I was an interior design student, and interior design students are still required to do the first year of architecture courses. We don't actually have our own courses where I was, so I feel like that also didn't help the situation very much. Moving on from that, studio culture. I'm not sure how it works everywhere, but where I was, I ended up having to share a studio with about 40 other people, and across the hall were another 40. It was probably the worst. A lot of people thought I was really stupid. I was getting a lot of like verbal attacks against me, which was interesting. There was one person who apologized to me that the professor had talked to me about how I was failing. I had scheduled an appointment with a professor because they didn't have office hours to ask about like what I should do if I felt uncomfortable and I felt like students were unkind, and if I felt like I didn't belong in architecture, I wasn't failing. So that was kind of interesting. One of my favorite things was the Fletcher. How could I forget my best friend Fletcher? Okay, so the Fletcher is this big paper cutting tool. And what I would do was to efficiently cut, I would cut just like maybe a centimeter off of where I needed to cut so that my pieces would be more manageable. And I was talking to the guy who sat next to me, and I was telling him like, oh, I'm going to the Fletcher, and he said, why are you going there? I was like, oh, just to cut these into more manageable pieces. And he was like, well, they're gonna end up jagged. And I said, yeah, I don't cut them all the way, I just cut them like a centimeter off, and then I cut that off so I can refine the edge. And then he was like, you know, that's actually really smart. And I said, yeah, everyone here seems to think I'm stupid, but I actually have really good ideas. And he just says, oh, you've heard us talking about that? Studio culture wasn't friendly toward me. I had this girl at my table who was like always kind of like verbally abusing me and like calling me stupid, which was interesting. She was just not good. And then I dropped out. Spent $700 on the kit, probably spent like $400 on the model, spent like $1,000 altogether. Dropped out. I could not. I'm going to use my supplies at some point though, like I know it. But I just couldn't handle being in architecture or interior design. Like it was terrible. So I ended up going to the English department in my school, and I was given the wrong information about what classes I had already taken, so I ended up taking 2 literature classes, which I already had 2 credits filling that space. So I ended up with the same credit 4 times over, which is frustrating, but I mean, I enjoyed both of the classes. So I can't complain too much, even though I have 12 hours to apply to a 3-hour requirement and none of the other ones count. I went from being a B-, C+ architecture student to being a straight A student in the English department. Actually, first semester, my classes that weren't architecture, I also had A's in. It was just my architecture classes that I didn't. Moving along from that, first thing that happened was I went to my psychology class because I was taking still a mix of architecture requirements and English requirements, so I was taking psychology. This kid comes up to me and he says, "Hey, do you want to go to lunch?" We go to lunch, and then he invites me to his Christian fellowship group, and I went, not like to be polite. My sister was in a Christian sorority, and it was the most insane thing I've ever heard of. I would never put myself through something like that, so I knew for a fact that I had no intention of joining this organization. And as I'm leaving, they're like, "Ooh, can we offer a prayer for you?" And I was like, "Just for everyone to have a good day." And the kid who's like the leader that had invited me goes, "Are you sure that's all?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." He goes, "Well, you look sad, and I think you should sit down and continue talking with us about it." And I was like, "Okay, this isn't for me." I just said I really have to go, and I left. Because they were like trying to take advantage of the fact that I seemed sad to push numbers in their group. So that didn't work out. And like as the semester went on, I was like really bored and lonely, but I was overall having a good time. I went to a concert and I saw Cave Town, who I highly recommend if you haven't listened to him. And when I went to the concert, I was chased by a homeless person. I had to do psychology experiments, like as subject participants. And those were kind of fun. I recited an entire monologue from Harry Potter and the Cursed Child because they wanted me to act like I was going for my dream job, and I was like, I'm auditioning. So I walked in and I said, "Hello, my name is Michael. I am 19 and I will be auditioning for the role of Scorpius Malfoy in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I will be reciting from Act 2, Scene 15. And like, I went all out, and like, they were really caught off guard, but like, it was fun. So yeah, I would love to get the recording of that because it was honestly so much fun. I don't know much else. I don't know what else I really want to talk about. That's pretty much my year. Finished on a low note. I was pretty out of it, pretty sad. But I'm ready for year 2, and we will see how that goes. And I think that it's really important to just let the past go and let yourself move on. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed hearing what my year was like. I hope you had a better year, and if you didn't have a great year, then you're not alone. I think there's an adjustment period getting into college. A lot of my friends were unhappy. Some of them did exceptionally well transitioning, but I just didn't. So I love you all. I'll see you in the next video. I hope you're having an amazing day, and goodbye.